we back. I'm here on Discord, and today we're talking about new servers. I've made a video before on starting up a new server, setting it up, and other such things. At least I think I did. But I figured today I would do a video on bots on new servers, because I don't think I've done that before. And it's a reasonable topic, in my opinion. Bots on new servers, hey? You sure do add some of those. I see a lot of people, when they're making a new server, adding all the bots in the world because it's going to make everything better and be wonderful. And that's not really true. But I also see people just assuming that bots are garbage and not adding any. You kind of need to find a balance. Obviously, on my new servers, I often add a lot of bots. You can see a lot of bots here, and like especially if you go onto my server here, we've got a fair few bots. But it's worth noting that when I first started out the server, there was not this many bots, not even nearly that many, because it's a bit daunting. If you're on a new server, you've got probably not that many members, and your entire channel list is filled with bot channels, because a lot of bots do need their own channel. And then people that are joining the server might not know how to use bots. Admittedly, that's not a problem that I have that often. But they're going to be a bit daunted by the number of bots they are. They don't know which ones to play, which ones are fun, and so most of the time they're going to just not, which is not fun. So you kind of don't want to put too many bots on. It's actually going to hinder you a little bit, and just adding a million bots because you find them interesting is not necessarily the best thing for your server. But that's not to say that you can't add bots. You absolutely should add a few bots. And so which bots should you add? Well, number one on my list is absolutely Tatsumaki. I think this is the one bot that every server should have, really. It's an amazing bot. It does a lot of different things. Admittedly, some of its features don't work so well. If you saw any of my videos on roll reactions, you know that Tatsumaki does do roll reactions, and they broke, and I now use YAGPDB instead for those. But it does do a lot of things. And something that's very important about Tatsumaki is it has a leveling system that is global. And so people that care about that leveling system are going to spend a lot more time typing in servers that have Tatsumaki than don't. Now, it doesn't take any effort to add Tatsumaki to the server, and even just disable its commands if you don't want it to be there. But just having it be in the server means that people can be leveling up, and that does increase the chances of people using your server. I do know people that will not type in a server purely because it doesn't have Tatsumaki. Now, admittedly, that's a very small minority, but there are people like that. So I think you want to have Tatsumaki just so people can be getting that stuff. And plus, it does have the server-based leaderboard as well, which is kind of nice. It's got a bunch of really nice utility functions, like account creation and server join date. Obviously, that's something that we can do with default Discord now. They've added that in. But before that, you had to use something like Tatsumaki for it. And it's still got a bunch of other nice info, role info, server info, user info. And it's really nice to have access to that kind of stuff on your server. So I'd very much say to add Tatsumaki to any new server. Past that, it's a lot more open. Surprising or not, Tatsumaki is actually pretty much the only bot that I would say you have to add to like every server ever. Now there are a couple of other options though, of course. So for example, I mentioned leveling. Tatsumaki does have a server leveling system as well as a global leveling system, but it might be nice to have a different one if you're not planning on using the Tatsumaki one, because the Tatsumaki one is based purely off messages. Which is a bit less gamified, shall we say. And people always love a good bit of gamification. So if you use something like MEE6 or Arcane, that might do you a little bit better. MEE6 and Arcane are both great bots. I would suggest using one and not the other. If I go to a server like this, I believe we have both. There is Arcane. Do we have MEE6 anywhere on this list? Maybe I'm wrong. But some servers do have both, and I think that's just silly. You really should stick to one. Don't put both. But yeah, you could add MEE6 or Arcane. It's a nice bit of a leveling system. You can use it for some roles or something. Just check how active people are. Of course, if you're listening to my advice and you've got Tatsumaki, you can check how active people are anyway. And of course, you have the Discord search bar, which you can also check. But yeah, MEE6 and Arcane are reasonable choices after that as well. You could add one of them, maybe. You're probably going to want some sort of moderating bot. Even if you're just making a small server, and you're not planning on doing much moderating wise, it's nice to have a moderating bot, because there are actually some things that moderating bots can do that you can't do in native Discord. It's not just like, oh, but I can just right click to ban people, I don't need a bot to do that. Yes, you are correct, but for example, muting somebody, you just actually can't do that in native Discord. We have timeout now, which is actually very similar, to be fair, but it's not quite the same thing. And there's a lot of features like that you can do with bots that you can't do in proper Discord. So I would advise having some sort of moderating bot for that, just in case you need it. It's better to have it and not use it than to have an issue and then need to go and invite one. Which moderating bot would you use? Well, if you've got Me6 for the leveling, that's a moderating bot already. Me6 does a great job, so you're sorted. I personally use Dino. We flip over to my server. You can see I have Dino here. This is my moderating bot of choice. Dino's really great, does a lot of good stuff. But yeah, you can also use Me6. You can also use Yui, which we don't have here. You can use quite a few bots. Carl is pretty good for moderating, I think. Now again, you probably just want to pick one of these bots. Don't have a bunch of them. I mean, I know I say that Me6 is good for moderating and I have Dino as well, but I use Dino for moderating. If we flip over to the staff channel, leaks, you'll see that I use Dino exclusively for moderating stuff. There is no Me6 going on here. You want to be consistent, because if you use one system consistently, your moderating is going to be a lot simpler. You're not going to have some issues with bots like getting in each other's way. So I would recommend just having one. Dino, sure. Me6, if you're using it for leveling, that saves some space. Of course, the less bots you have, the better, really, so that it doesn't take as much space. But yeah, there's plenty of bots there. Now, what about like game bots? Game bots are always good. I would recommend having a game bot or two on your server, even if you're not big into bots. I mean, in that case, why are you on my channel, huh? But then I would still recommend having a game bot or two, because other people on your server might want to join in with one, and they might want to like compete with each other. It could be a good bit of fun to have a game bot. Now, if you have a bunch of game bots like I do, then, like I said, people are going to be a bit daunted. They're not going to know which one to play, etc., etc. But if you put one or two, then pretty much everyone on the server is going to group together and play those one or two. And that works really nicely. Which one or two should you add? That's actually just kind of up to you. You're welcome to look at my other videos on a million different bots and see which ones you fancy. We've got things like Pokegourd if you fancy Pokemon. We've got OWOBot if you fancy grinding out OOH for ages, which, funny enough, is the name of the bot on my server, although H is just the prefix. It's a coincidence. But yeah, there you go. We've got Madei and Karuta. Where's Karuta? Up here. For like waifu collecting and stuff, which is pretty nice. They're great bots. We've got Notbot, that's basically the same as OWO. Mafia Bot, if you want some party games, so like Town of Salem. We've got Rinbot, that's a pretty chilled bot as well. Stuff like that. There's loads of game bots, and then there's loads, of course, that I haven't made videos on and I haven't got. We've got like Dank Mimo, which I wouldn't advise adding, but hey, you can if you want. Something like Epic RPG or Boxbot or whatever. You know, there's loads of game bots out there, and I would suggest picking one or two. If you're not sure which to pick, just do a bit of research, find out which ones you want, because the people that join your server, you know, they're probably like similar things to you, and that's probably why they join the server. So whichever bot you think sounds the most interesting, add that bot. You know, you can always swap it out if you get bored. And later down the line, when your members are used to using the bots that you have, then you can start adding more, which is what I then do. My server here has been going for about 1.5 years, and as you can see, we have built up quite a few bots. Because over time, people ask for new bots. We've played the ones that you've got, let's get some more in here, you know, which is perfectly fair. Just don't add that many from the get-go. But yeah, past that, pick the ones that you're interested in, and that's that. Then there's also helper bots. I'm going to briefly mention helper bots, but I honestly would avoid having any of them in a new server. I just don't think it's helpful. Helper bots are things like Sierra, Reaction Bot, Kaching, stuff like that. It's bots that help other bots. And this, I just really wouldn't bother adding them to a new server. Like, yeah, okay, in theory, if you're having Karuta, you could also add Kaching, for example. But, like, in a new server, I honestly wouldn't bother, because most of your players are probably not going to have played Karuta, and then they join your server and go, oh, hey, what's this new bot? Let me figure this out. And, of course, you're going to get some people that have played Karuta already, but the majority haven't. And so then when you say, oh, yeah, and there's this other bot that, like, helps out Karuta, they're just going to be confused. I would advise not adding it until the majority of your players on the server have already played Karuta and know what's up, right? So, you know, a couple of months down the line you could add it, but on a new server, I just wouldn't. Then I guess the last thing to mention is just the other kind of random bots. We've got things like NQN and Pancake. This, again, is entirely down to you which ones you want. It's very similar to the game bots. If you know what these bots do and you want it, add them, sure, whatever. Like, so for my server, we got Pancake for music, and we've got NQN for emotes. I mean, that's all it does. So, you know, we also get YagPDB for all reactions because Tatsumaki can't do it. And things like that. Like, if you know what these bots do, add them and do the thing, right? But if you don't know what they do and you don't really care, don't bother. It is not worth adding bots that you're not going to use, right? Only add them if you already know what they do and you want the features, because you're just going to have too many bots otherwise. So how many bots is that in total? Let's see, we've got Tatsumaki, definitely. Let's say you get Me6 for the leveling and the moderating, that's 2 bots. You can pick 2 games, I don't know, let's say Karuta and OO bot, sure, that's 4 bots. And then maybe like, oh yeah, and I do VC, I want some music, we'll add Pancake bot. That's 5 total, and that's a pretty good number. 5 is a pretty good number for a new server. I wouldn't go over that. That's about all you need. And then, like I say, later down the line, when people get used to the bots, you can add some more. You can add some helper bots. Just add stuff that your members want, you know? Servers evolve as they get longer. Don't just make a new server and put everything in it immediately, because that's not going to be what people want. So just slowly add stuff over time as people get used to it. And it works a lot nicer. But yeah, there you go. About 5 bots in total. So there you go. I think that's everything that I want to say today. So I'm just going to end this video here. Bye!